Hello, everybody, and welcome to the City of Chicago Virtual Town Hall for Housing Providers in Chicago. My name is Daniel K. Hertz. I am Director of Policy for the Chicago Department of Housing, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this webinar tonight. I am going to pass it to another one of my colleagues here at the Department of Housing, Managing Deputy Commissioner Cindy Soto.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Cindy Soto, as Daniel just mentioned, Managing Deputy Commissioner at the Chicago Department of Housing. I'd like to ID myself for people with visual disabilities. I'm a woman with long black hair and brown highlights. I have dark skin and brown eyes. I'm wearing a red and black scarf around my neck and striped blue top. This event is being broadcasted in English and with ASL translation. If you need Spanish translation, please log on via Zoom. Go to the link that you see on the site or on our PowerPoint presentation. And by going to the link, you'll be able to access our English and our ASL and our Spanish translation directly. Si necesita traducción en español, por favor vaya al sitio de internet que ve en la pantalla y haga clic en el icono del globo. Está bajito de la pantalla. We know that COVID-19 has been difficult for everyone, and that housing instability has been intensified by the pandemic for both tenants and landlords. That is why we hosted a town hall for tenants, and now we're hosting a town hall for landlords and property managers. In response, the Department of Housing quickly mobilized to address housing needs of Chicagoans in addition to this event. For instance, we provided emergency rental and utility assistance through our own affordable housing funds and federal funds created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We conducted various rounds of assistance, which totaled over $180 million. These funds helped create and implement a vast network of delegate agencies tasked with distributing funds to Chicago residents in need of assistance at a much faster rate. And through our community partner neighborhood housing services, we offered mortgage assistance for homeowners at risk of foreclosure. Also important to note is the creation of the Housing Stability Community Resource Team that came together to address the housing crisis caused by the pandemic. The Housing Stability Community Response Team includes a range of housing stakeholders, including housing providers, legal aid organizations, advocates, and community organizations. The City of Chicago greatly appreciates this group for helping to organize this evening's event and for providing residents with vital housing resources across the city. The goal of this evening's event is that you walk away with resources and information that can provide relief to you and your tenants. Now I'd like to welcome Joseph Lopez, Executive Director of the Spanish Coalition for Housing, to share more about the Housing Stability Community Response Team and why we wanted to organize this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Daniel. My name is Joseph Lopez, the Executive Director with the Spanish Coalition for Housing. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to take part in this very important conversation around landlord services. I would like to identify myself in terms of visualization. So I am wearing glasses, a blue sweater, and a white collared shirt. Sitting in front of a screen with a blue backdrop as well. So a little bit about the Spanish Coalition for Housing. Spanish Coalition for Housing is one of the largest bilingual English and Spanish nonprofit HUD certified housing counseling organizations in Chicago and within Illinois that has served the affordable housing needs of Chicago households for 50 years, which 2022 marks our 50th anniversary. Through our comprehensive housing counseling program, and partners with the City of Chicago through its housing counseling centers to connect housing counseling to Chicago residents and help to meet their affordable housing needs. This includes renters, single-family homeowners, as well as small landlords. The Housing Stability Community Response Team, as you've heard, really came together through the dedication and commitment of both the administration and the City of Chicago, departments of housing, and bringing community stakeholders together. It is a group of community leaders from 8 community areas, as well as legal aid and advocacy organizations, data partners, and other government leaders. When we meet, leaders from community organizations and housing providers like the Spanish Coalition for Housing share what we're seeing and hearing in our communities, and our work to help inform how city directs resources and shapes programs. The Housing Stability Community Response Team is working to create community-based solutions to evictions and housing instability. And I can't say enough about the dedication, the passion and commitment of the community-based organizations and government leadership that has really came to the table to look at developing really real-time solutions to help our Chicagoans to stabilize their housing. So we know that the pandemic, as you've heard from Sydney, has created financial hardships for many Chicagoans, and both housing providers and renters alike are experiencing housing instability. We want you to know that you're not alone and that there is help available for both you and your tenants. We organize this event specifically so that you know how to access these resources and so that you can ask any questions you might have. And with that, I will turn it back over to Daniel Hertz with the Department of Housing. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And I apologize, I forgot to ID myself visually. So I'm a white man wearing glasses and a blue button down with curly hair in my office. I have a couple posters behind me. So again, we're really glad to be here with our partners and with all of you for this event. So our agenda today, obviously we're in the welcome right now. Following that, right after this, we'll have a section we call Eviction Fact or Eviction Fiction about different questions about the myths and realities of the eviction situation and tenant stability and housing provider stability situation here in Chicago now. Then we'll have a section on more about some of the available resources that we lift up during the fact or fiction section, followed by a piece on mediation and what mediation can offer to housing providers and tenants as an alternative to the eviction process. And finally, of course, saving plenty of time for questions and answers to hear from you all at the end of the webinar for the last almost half hour. So with that, before we move on, actually, I wanted to say we're going to post this slide deck to as well as slides to Chicago.gov/eviction. And please feel free as we go on. You don't need to wait until the end to pose your questions. If you think of something or you have something that comes up as we're going, please feel free to post your questions either to the Zoom chat that you're in, if you're on Zoom, or if you're watching on Facebook to the Facebook chat as we go, and we'll be able to answer those at the end. Finally, we're going to have a number of different speakers today from different organizations who have been part of this collaborative work on this issue, and each speaker will introduce themselves to you when they speak for the first time, so you can get a sense of who all is here. Okay, so on the next slide, we have the goals of today's session, of today's webinar. So at a high level, the purpose of this is to help all of you understand which resources are available to you and your tenants still in Chicago, understand mediation process and the in-court process. And then, of course, most importantly, just to get your questions answered and get connected with somebody who can help answer your questions or direct you to the resources or information that you need. So on the next slide, we will begin our next section, which is Eviction Fact or Eviction Fiction. I'm joined here by Bob Glaves from the Chicago Bar Foundation and Elliot Haleman from Center for Conflict Resolution. And they're going to help answer some of these questions. So we're going to go on to the first one. And the way this is going to work is we will say a statement and we'll then turn it over to you to share in the chat. Do you believe this is a fact or fiction about the current situation? And then Bob and Elliot will help answer the question and give a little more context on it. So if we move to the next slide, our first fact or fiction. If my tenant owes me rent, I can force them out without filing an eviction. So go ahead and you can answer in the chat, is that a fact or a fiction? And then I'll turn it over to Bob in just a minute to provide an answer.
All right, we'll give everybody a moment. I will describe myself for people who can't see me while we are putting those in, although it looks like people are getting the answer correct here. My name is Bob Glaves. I'm at the Chicago Bar Foundation. And for those of you who can't see me right now, I'm an average looking white guy with a lot of gray hair that makes me look older than my 56 years, including a gray goatee. So I think it looks, just from a quick look at the chat, that you've all gotten this correct. That is fiction. You cannot do that. That's called an illegal lockout, and you're going to be in a world of hurt if you try to do that. Only the court can actually order an eviction for somebody. And if you do it, try to do it on your own as a lockout, or just do it on your own. It's called a lockout, but you're going to be in a world of hurt with lawyers coming after you, the city coming after you, and it just will get a whole lot worse for you. So this is this webinar. We're going to tell you a little bit more. There's a lot of resources and a lot of assistance available to landlords to do this the right way, and we want to help you do that and look for solutions before eviction as well. So I'll stop there because we'll have a lot more to say.
Great, thank you, Bob. So the next statement here in Fact or Fiction is mediation can help me resolve issues with my tenants without going to eviction court. Is that fact or fiction? Enter your answer in the chat. And then I'll try.
And while people are giving the answer, I'm going to just visually describe myself. My name is Elliot Heilman. I'm a program manager with the Center for Conflict Resolution. Also help coordinate access to resources through the Early Resolution Program, which we'll hear more about. I am a white male, have a beard, glasses, and I'm currently wearing, I would guess I would call it a salmon button down, but you guys can tell me if you disagree. All right. So Daniel, I'll go ahead. Yes, that is a fact. Mediation can help you resolve issues, and that mediation is a resource that's available to you before you file an eviction case, after you filed an eviction case, and after you've been seen by the judge. So it's available to you at numerous different points. We'll talk about mediation a little bit more later, so I'll just leave it for there right now.
Great, thank you. So the next fact or fiction: if my tenant is having trouble paying for rent, there is no longer financial help available. Is that a fact or fiction? You can answer in the chat.
Okay, we have a little bit more of a mix this time. That's good. It is actually a fiction. There is help available still. First of all, and I saw a question in the chat already. So the Housing Development Authority and the city are both processing applications that have already been submitted. So the one that you referenced that was in December may still be in the mix, and hopefully you'll be hearing from them soon. And then the city does have a couple rental assistance opportunities still available for landlords who need to apply now, landlords with tenants ideally. But so there are, through the Department of Housing Services and Department of Family and Support Services as well through the city. So you can still get rental assistance.
Great, thank you, Bob. And the last fact or fiction here is, as a housing provider, there is no help available to me.
No hay ayuda para mí. Como un proveedor de vivienda, no hay ayuda para.
Okay, that is a fiction, although I see we are getting much more of a mix here. So hopefully by the time we're done tonight, you'll have a better sense of the help that is available. But there is a lot of help available to landlords. And so we're going to talk more in detail about this, but there's the Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt Program, it's called, has resources for both landlords and tenants that include mediation, access to rental assistance, also foreclosure prevention. So if any of you are in a situation where a tenant not paying is putting you into some peril with your mortgage, there is assistance with navigating that process, and the Illinois Housing Development Authority is going to have a mortgage assistance program that's opening up. We just actually heard this on April 11th. So there may be those resources available as well, but there is free legal help available to you through a hotline that we'll talk about more, and then in court as well if you need that to try to work out things with the tenant and make sure you're accessing all the other resources. So that we will talk about this more in the next section in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the end of the eviction factor fiction section. What we want you to take away from this, and we'll, as Bob just said, we're going to get into much more detail in the rest of the webinar, but what we want you to know as property owners and housing providers is that financial and legal help is still available for both tenants and landlords, and that you can access mediation services to try and resolve issues with tenants even before filing for eviction, or as we'll talk about in more detail in a minute, even if you've already filed for eviction against your tenant. So on the next slide, we're going to transition to the next section of the webinar about finding resources for you as a rental property owner with help from a whole cast of collaborators and colleagues here. So we're going to talk primarily in this section about financial assistance and other resources. And as we talked about in the agenda, the next section, we will talk specifically in more detail about mediation as an option for you. So let's move along to the next slide. So we wanted to give an update on rental assistance applications, which we know is something that a lot of folks have already put some questions in the chat about, and we get a lot of questions about. So from the Department of Housing side, we're continuing to process rental assistance applications as quickly as we can. We have a staff of 60 who are working on that full time. And up to this point, we've dispersed over $144 million of rental assistance to nearly 19,000 households. And obviously are going to continue doing that as long as funds continue to be available. If you've already submitted an application and you are waiting to hear about the status, you can always check your status online. You can go to Chicago.gov/rent-help for information. You can both see what your status is and get some explanations of what the status that you'll find on the application platform, what that actually means about where your application is in the process. IDA, Illinois Housing Development Authority, is also obviously had a round recently, and I'll turn it over to Rodrigo Carrillo to talk about that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Daniel. Rodrigo Carrillo, the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Response with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And to visually describe myself, I'm a Latino, light skin, light brown hair with a floral print jacket. And I'm here to talk about some of the resources that IDA has done and is currently offering. So 2021, we did Illinois Rental Payment Program, and we dispersed over $590 million to the state of Illinois for rental assistance. And in December, we launched the second round of Illinois Rental Payment Program. We saw probably close to 75,000 applications for rental assistance. Currently, 52,000 applications have been matched, and we're nearly complete with doing initial review of those applications. Actually, we're on target to finish reviewing those applications by the end of next week. This PowerPoint says 33 million has been dispersed, but as of today, it's actually 39 million. Every million counts. So we're trying to get this money out the door as quickly as possible. If you have submitted an application for the rental payment program, please check ilrpp.ida.org for your status of the application. And those statuses are in real time.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. On the next slide, a question that obviously is really important and that we hear a lot. Are there rental assistance programs open for applicants right now? And for that, I'm going to turn it to Mark, a colleague from the Department of Family and Support Services.
Hello, good evening. So yes, our rental assistance program is still accepting applications. We can receive, so the portal is open on a rolling basis, and you can access that application through the website you may see on the screen, Chicago.gov/FSS. And so we will continue to serve Chicago residents that still need support with their rental assistance. There are income requirements, as well as there needs to be cooperation with the landlord. However, once you submit that application, you'll work with with the team at the Community Service Center, and we will support you in either completing that application or providing follow-ups with regard to the status of that application.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to turn it back to Rodrigo to talk more about another really important housing assistance program that the state will be launching soon.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. And if you haven't seen, we did a press release today to announce that the Illinois Homeowners Assistance Fund will also be managed through IDA. We are going to be offering up to $30,000 of mortgage assistance to those struggling to pay their mortgage due to COVID-19. The application portal will open April 11th for this assistance. We currently have on illinoishousinghelp.org webinars on what the process will look like, what the timeframe will be, and any sort of required documentation and frequently asked questions. This program is for households that are less than 150% of the area median income. We are going to prioritize those that are less than 100% of the area median income. It's owner-occupied property units that are 1 to 4, and applicants must be at least 30 days late on their mortgage or property taxes in order to apply to be eligible for this assistance. We are encouraging folks to visit first one of the HUD certified counseling agencies that you will find on illinoishousinghelp.org to help you with your process. We have one of those agencies with us. Spanish Coalition for Housing is one of those agencies. And you'll be able to start that application process April 11th.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. On the next slide, we're going to hear from Daniel Matthews and Cornelia Sands on where can you get help if you need housing assistance, who can help navigate this process with you. So take it away, Daniel and Cornelia. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Matthews, Director of Homeownership Services at NHS Chicago. I am an African-American woman with long brown hair and blonde highlights, wearing a black and tan sweater. I will provide a brief overview of free foreclosure services for housing providers. NHS Chicago is committed to affordable and sustainable housing. We remain dedicated to helping property owners prevent foreclosure. Under the City of Chicago Foreclosure Prevention Program and Housing Counseling Center programs, HUD-approved agencies like NHS Chicago offers free services to homeowners at risk of foreclosure. Both programs provide information, advice, and assistance to current and potential homeowners. We also offer financial assistance to renters as well. Services offered include one-on-one counseling and standalone courses like foreclosure prevention courses. Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago, Far South CDC, who is on a call today with us, as well as Spanish Coalition for Housing, provide free services to landlords and homeowners needing assistance. NHS Chicago offers education classes. Foreclosure prevention education will help you better understand the foreclosure process. During the NHS foreclosure workshop, we discuss home retention and explain non-retention options and the foreclosure process. We review the loan modification process, mediation, and Illinois Housing Development Authority Mortgage Assistance Grant Program. We will also provide information on how to apply and how to prepare for the housing counseling appointment. Foreclosure prevention counseling services is another free service that we can provide to current homeowners. Our foreclosure prevention counseling services are for homeowners who are behind on their mortgage or in danger of falling behind and would like to meet with a HUD certified counselor to address the situation to prevent foreclosure of their home. NHS Chicago is a HUD approved agency through the IDA housing service provider. We will assist all housing providers with application support through the HAVE program that will launch on April the 11th. NHS can also assist you with providing a foreclosure counseling certificate that may be required with your application. You can visit NHS Chicago's website at www.nhschicago.org, or you can call our office directly at 773-329-4111 to sign up for a free comprehensive foreclosure counseling appointment. Next, Cornelia Sams from Far South CDC will provide additional HUD certified resources.
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Cornelia Sams. Just to give a brief description, I am African-American, have a gray shirt, button-down shirt on, low haircut with a white background. Thank you, Ms. Matthews, for that introduction. And one thing I definitely want to do, not to overlap the information, but just to stress Far South CDC, we are a HUD approved housing counseling agency as well, providing all the same services in regards to foreclosure, prevention, post-purchase, rental, alike as it pertains to this webinar. One thing I do want to stress, and I do counseling myself, is that we see a lot of landlords needing the assistance, but also having issues with tenants that are either not communicating or not being 100% honest with their current situation. Or there may be some that started off good in regards to giving updates to where their rental assistance applications are, and or if they are getting a direct tenant assistance through rental assistance programs like IDA. However, they have fallen off with the communication. One of the best things that I've seen that landlords love as a free service is that we are able to, think of it like a referral side or referral basis. If you are having tenants that need that rental counseling, that coaching and understanding of even more resources and options for them. And I always like to state it too as well, if it gets to that point where that landlord and that tenant, it's a little bit too emotional, you can't, have that peaceful conversation. We have rental counseling to actually do one-on-ones with your tenants, which is vital in this pandemic, in this situation. As a housing counselor, rental counselor as well, we're able to answer and have those hard conversations with tenants directly. Some conversations, some straightforward, truthful, and honest conversations that a landlord may not have, or may seem like they're crossing the line. So we do in-depth one-on-one, even with the landlord's tenants, to say, you know what, let's sit down and see exactly where you are financially, what's been going on. But most importantly, I know a lot of landlords, because I've been on the phone with them, they hear the tenant saying, I don't have anything. One thing that we do, and we like to do, is sit down with the tenant to say, let's really see where your situation is. Let's see what you can give. Let's start that communication back up so that the landlord is not left out in the dark of where you are. And we are always stressed as a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, the communication is number one. So as a HUD-approved and a certified counselor, that is one thing that we're very passionate about, is making sure that the tenants are in constant communication with the landlord. We've seen that is probably one of the biggest challenges that landlords are having, especially when communication has just shut off completely. That's where the frustration and the emotions start up. So we want to definitely just stress, as Ms. Matthews stated before, yes, we can help you as a homeowner, but just to let you know that we also offer rental assistance to your tenants that you can refer to us, just to make sure that that mediation and that communication stays strong, which helps in these difficult situations where, like I said, anytime you talk about money, emotions come up. We can definitely make sure that both sides are on the same page. So you can actually check out all of the services that we have at Far South CDC or www.farsouthcdc.org. And we definitely want to make sure that all landlords understand that not only do you have resources, but we want to make sure that your tenants are taken care of as well.
Great, thank you so much. On the next slide, I'm gonna actually, for the next two slides, I'm gonna turn it back to Joseph Lopez.
Thank you, Daniel. So I do, as you've heard from our other partners, Neighborhood Housing Services, Far South CDC, that a lot of resources are available both for you as a landlord as well as tenants. I think that the critical component of today's event is just really raising those awareness of what's available for you as a property owner and for opportunities to connect additional resources to your tenants and ways to access that. Another resource that we do like to highlight is the Spanish Coalition for Housing Chicago Bilingual Landlord Association, which provides services to support small landlords to become informed and empowered owners through education and counseling on topics including conflict resolution, landlord and tenant rights, understanding city ordinances, tenant screening, contracts and notices, and landlord training and certification. So for those who are current landlords, opportunities to learn about best practices and improve your landlord management skills, as well as those who are prospective landlords, opportunities to become a successful landlord and what you need to know to do that. I would like to underscore that we've been providing through Spanish Coalition for Housing services to small landlords across all Chicago's 77 community areas for nearly 2 decades. This is an opportunity and a free resource to small landlords across Chicago. Next slide, please. In addition to support with both your mortgage relief that you've heard from both our state partners as well as the city and gearing up to access those types of programs, but also support for tenant and rental cost to connect with your tenants. There's also utility bill assistance, and utility payments are essentially, another factor in your housing costs, whether it is you as a property owner or your tenants. And important pieces to note and to access is if you receive a disconnection notice, it is important that you call your utility company immediately to discuss those options. For financial help with gas or electric bills, we advise that you call CEDA, which is CEDA, to see if you qualify for the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. One of the great things about this program is that not only is it offered on an annual basis, but most recently the state has committed additional rounds of funding to support utility relief for both homeowners and renters. And you can visit CEDA.org, that's CEDA.org.net, or call the call center at 1-800-571-2332. And you may also be eligible for the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program and the Utility Bill Relief Program for assistance with water and sewer bills. And I invite you to visit the Chicago.gov/UBR or CEDA.org.net, or once again, you can call the call center at 1-800-571-2332. And I also invite you to visit the Citizens Utility Board, which is a great resource. You can to learn more about your rights as a utility customer. You can visit their website at cubhelpcenter.com or call their call center at 669-5566. So these are all resources that are readily available to you and to your tenants as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to now turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Joseph. So we talked a little bit about that you have free legal help and other resources available to you through the Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt Program. So there's a website, cookcountylegalaid.org, or you can call a hotline, 855-956-5763, where you can get the basic information to connect the services through that. And on that website, the cookcountylegalaid.org website, there is a checklist for landlords. So if you feel like you are potentially going to have to pursue an eviction or you're having trouble getting paid, there's a checklist on what you need to do to help you understand what is going to happen. And again, you can connect to free legal help to help you, work through that hotline as well. So encourage you to use those resources. As we talked about earlier, we really encourage you, before you do actually file an eviction, to consider mediation. We'll talk again a little bit more about how you can do that and why that's beneficial. Right now, a lot of you may already know this, but there are some backlogs in the Daly Center in the Chicago court system here around these cases. So it's taking longer than normal for your cases to get heard. We are working with the court actively on this, trying to fix this. And also the court call itself is taking a long time. So we've got a lot of work in progress right now to try to fix this. But right now it can take extra long to get into court. So all the more reason to really see if you can come up with a negotiated solution. And obviously the best solutions everybody's always going to want to find are the ones where you can get your back rent paid and you can keep the tenant in place. But as we've seen in the chat, you've got some cases where that's just not going to be realistic. Mediation can still be beneficial, and you can hear more about that when Elliot speaks again. But just to look at alternative solutions to not having to go through the whole process. So we encourage you to do that. And again, you heard about there's help if you're behind on your mortgage and you're in an owner-occupied place as well, where you can get assistance with property tax payments as well. So there are lots of resources here. We encourage you to use them. And I think I'm going to turn it to Mark for the next slide.
Right. If you need shelter, or if you're at risk of experiencing homelessness, if you need to seek short-term shelter right away, please call 311 from anywhere in the city, and we will support you with placement. If you call for, if you are at risk of homelessness, you can also call our homelessness prevention call center by dialing 311 or 312-744-5000 and ask for short-term help. The call center staff will assess your eligibility for financial assistance and other community resources, and will refer you to the appropriate partner agencies that can help. And so I will pass over to Janice.
Hi, my name is Janice Simmons. I'm the Vice President of Community and Housing Services for the Far South CDC, Community Development Corporation. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mental health resources. As we know, COVID-19 has been hard on everyone, but even for landlords thinking about financial needs to have their mortgage paid, their rent paid so that they can pay their mortgage, they also have to think about the people that may be displaced. All of that could be very stressful for you and for your tenant. So we do have some resources that are listed here that could help for you and your tenant. If you're experiencing anxiety or depression, you can speak to someone and find other resources by visiting Chicago.gov.com. And you can also get more information about mental health services by going to the Chicago Department of Public Health's website. That's at Chicago.gov/C as in Chicago, D as in department, P as in public, and H as in health. That's Chicago.gov/Chicago Department, Chicago.gov/CDPH for mental health resources if you're feeling stressed. I'm going to turn it back over to Daniel, who's going to kind of recap the things that we hope that you've picked up from the sessions just before now. Daniel.
Thank you so much, Janice. So this is that wraps up our section on resources. We hope that we know that there was a lot of information, and just as a reminder, these slides will be posted at Chicago.gov/eviction, including translated slides will be posted there. But the big takeaways, number one is that rental assistance applications, if you've already applied, those applications are still being processed and approved. And there are still some places where you can go, like the Department of Family and Support Services, to submit new applications. There are still housing and utility resources available for homeowners and housing providers. And there are mental health resources available, because again, we know that this is not just about money for many of us here, for many of you. For more information on this, again, we will have these slides posted at Chicago.gov/eviction. There's other information on resources at that site as well as these other sites, Chicago.gov/landlords, Chicago.gov/homeowners, and Chicago.gov/Sweet Home, which provides an overview of the resources and programs that the Department of Housing runs, which may be of use to you. So with that said, we can move on to our next section on the next slide, which is all about mediation. How does it work? How do you access it? What kind of solutions can it offer to you? And for that, again, we're going to get help from Bob Glaves and Elliot Heilman from the Center for Conflict Resolution. And I will turn it over to Elliot to talk a little bit more on the next slide about what is mediation and why you might want to consider it.
Thanks, Daniel. So at a big level, mediation is the opportunity for landlords and tenants to generate their own solutions to any issues that may happen. What that looks like in practice is it's a free and voluntary resource that we often do via Zoom. So if both the landlord and tenant are willing to participate in the conversation, we bring you together for about 60 to 90 minutes with the help of a mediator who is a neutral, impartial third party who's just there to help guide the conversation and help hopefully make things a little bit more productive. So as I said before, mediation is a resource that's available to you whenever. Before you file a case, if you're thinking about filing a case, after you file the case, whenever, we're always welcome to talk with you. And so mediation can be valuable, especially as Bob had mentioned before. There's kind of a little bit of it's taking longer for cases to work their way through the court. There's also a number of costs that are associated with filing and following through with a court case. So mediation can be valuable because potentially there's a solution or a resolution that can happen outside of all those expenses. And there are a couple different potential outcomes that are here. In general, we see a lot of outcomes that are pay and stay agreements. So somebody's agreeing to pay back rent that's owed and stay in the unit. Or you can talk about the potential of a move out plan and what that might look like. We also do have all of our services that are available in whatever language you need. We work with interpretation services as well. So thank you.
Okay, so Elliot told you about the benefits of mediation, and you do not have to have a court case to do that. You can connect to it even before court. So you can do that by contacting Elliot's organization, the Center for Conflict Resolution, before court by emailing newcase@ccrchicago.org, or you can call them directly at 312-922-6464 extension 22. This is in the PowerPoint you'll be able to get afterwards, so you'll have that information. You can also call the hotline that we talked about for the Cook County Legal Aid and Housing and Debt, so 855-956-5763. That will get you, or go to the website cookcountylegalaid.org to get those resources. So mediation available before, we encourage you to do that, but you can also get connected to that as well as legal help after you're in court too. So we're trying to help you at any stage of the process here to try to come up with solutions that are better than the sheriff having to come out and evict a tenant for you. So And there's almost always going to be a better solution than the sheriff having to go out to do that. So we're working to do this for you. Again, we're not taking sides in this program. Any of these programs, we're really trying to help both landlords and tenants, and we have these resources available. So I'll send it back to Elliot, and he can tell you a little bit more about how you connect to mediation and the other resources through the court process.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. So if you do find yourself in court and you have a first court date at any of the 6 districts in Cook County, me or one of the representatives from the early resolution program will be in that courtroom. And there's a couple of resources that can be made available to you, and the judge may choose to refer your case to us officially. If that does happen, what you will do is you'll receive a future court date to give you a little bit of time to access resources. Me or one of my colleagues will talk to you over, most likely in a separate breakout room, and we'll help connect you to all those resources. But when you're there, if you are self-represented, that is to say, if you do not have a lawyer assigned to you, we can help connect you to free legal advice. If you are represented, you are also welcome to access some other resources as well, including access to rental assistance and mediation services. So there are 3 basic resources that are there: free legal advice, connection to rental assistance programs, and mediation services. And again, we are happy to help both landlords and tenants in other languages as well, so that we are happy to help with interpretation services. So that's all I have. Thanks, Dan.
Great, thank you so much. So again, that's some really important information on mediation services. Again, that was a lot of information. I'm just going to repeat again. We will post these slides at Chicago.gov/eviction. But the big takeaways here are that mediation is an opportunity for both landlords and tenants.
Mediación es una oportunidad para encontrar una solución. Y usted puede tener acceso a la mediación por medio de si ya metió una evicción o no lo ha hecho aún. Cualquier parte del proceso, la mediación puede ser una opción para usted. Y los animamos fuertemente a que vean a eso. Así es la solución correcta. Ahora estamos en la parte del programa y queremos escuchar de ustedes. Vamos a pasar el resto del tiempo.
Time answering your questions that you've put in the chat, whether you're here on Zoom or whether you're watching along on Facebook. So we're going to be going back through the chat, and I will read out the questions, and then I'll answer them if I can, or I'll throw them to one of our partners here who have been presenting today. So the first question that we have here is, if a tenant has been provided with rental assistance, but the amount is not adequate to cover the outstanding rent due, what other recourse does the landlord have to obtain outstanding past due rent? So, I'll say something briefly about the City of Chicago Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and then Rodrigo and others feel free to chime in with other information here. So the Chicago Emergency Rental Assistance Program will make every effort to cover all back rent that we are able to cover with the funds that we have. So we can cover up to, in this round, up to 15 months of back rent, and up to 3 months actually going forward, in order to help people who may need a little bit more help to stabilize in the coming months. So we will attempt to provide that, but there are some instances in which that won't cover everything. But we do require that there be at least, if a landlord, a housing provider, is receiving funds for that, let's say they're receiving 15 months, but their tenant owns 16 or 17, there is a requirement that they not file an eviction for any outstanding rent for at least 90 days after the period of support. So that is one sort of requirement that's on there. Again, we make every effort to cover what we can. But that is a piece of the policy with the Chicago rental assistance. Rodrigo, is there anything that you would add about the state rental assistance in that context?
Yeah, no, I think we have the same policy. We have a maximum cap of $25,000 or 15 months rent for the first round. In round 2, you're able to apply for up to 18 months, which is 15 months of back due rent and 3 months prospective forward rent. So it's the same.
Thank you. And anybody else, any other panelists would like to talk about what sort of options a landlord might have if they've received rental assistance, but there's still some outstanding rent that their tenant owes?
I will. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Cornelius Sams from Far South CDC. I think that's where it comes into play with the housing counseling. I know a lot of the push now is counseling because with the pandemic, it's not a 1 month pandemic. Next month, everything is fine. So one thing we found is the housing counseling is committed to continually looking at resources to help both the homeowner and, like I said before, with the tenant, get back on their feet, find additional resources, even being that point of contact so that when additional or future resources come out, they will already have that point of contact to continue the actual HUD counseling. So I think the HUD counseling is huge in this context, just because due to this pandemic that we've never seen before, to this magnitude, is going to be ongoing counseling needed for both homeowners and tenants.
Daniel, I would also like to add that Illinois Department of Human Services still has rental assistance available,
Yeah.
and someone can go to illinoisrentalassistance.org to look for an agency near them for applying.
Great, thank you, Rodrigo. The next question is, if my tenant applied for assistance in December, when can we expect to hear whether or not they will be receiving assistance? So again, I'll answer for the city, and Rodrigo, if you want to answer for the state. We are making it through the December applications as quickly as we can. Like I said, we have about 60 full-time staff working on this and are getting through about $1 million a day, but we do know, just based on the volume of applications, there are definitely people still waiting. And it may take, again, some time to reach everybody that we're able to reach. You can check your status at Chicago.gov/renthelp and logging in using the email that you use to apply. But the other piece of context I'll give, we are at the city, we're processing applications basically from lowest income applicants, prioritizing lowest income applicants first. So those are the folks who we're gonna get to first. Those people who are higher income, still qualifying, but higher income are the ones who unfortunately are having to wait longer. I apologize that we're not able to give sort of more specificity than that. Rodrigo, do you want to talk about the state program?
Yep, for IDA, if you've applied in December, please check your email regularly as statuses change in real time. We are on target to do to complete 52,000 initial reviews, 52,000 applications initial review by the end of next week. Those that receive denials, those are straight denials that they did not meet the eligibility factor. So if you did not receive an approval or a denial, check your email for any sort of communication regarding needing more documentation to complete the review of that file.
I'll add for the City of Chicago rental assistance program. If you applied in December, please contact the community service center that you were working with, and they can provide you with an update. And if you have received a denial notice from any of the other programs, our application portal is still open, and please, you can use that resource to determine if you're eligible for our program.
Great, thank you. The next question is, do you think there will be more rental assistance funds available for tenants? So that's a really great question. And part of the answer, I think, is the important distinction that there are several different programs, rental assistance programs that are being run now that people, both owners and tenants in the city of Chicago are eligible for. So I'll first talk about the Department of Housing Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And then I'll turn it over for Rodrigo for the state, and then Mark Sanders for the City of Chicago Department of Family and Support Services program. So for DOH, to be totally frank, it is not likely that we will be able to open another general round of rental assistance, just given the amount of funds we have left and the number of applications that we're still working through from the December round. It is possible that we will receive reallocation from the federal government from other jurisdictions that have not used their funds, and so we'll evaluate based on those decisions that the Department of Treasury makes over the coming year. But at this point, we would not be able to say that we'll be able to open another round ourselves. Rodrigo, do you want to speak to the state situation?
Yeah, right now we're focused on trying to get through the applications that we currently have. So as of now, we are just focused on that, and it's hard for us to tell.
Thanks. And Mark, what's the situation with the Department of Family and Support Services?
For DFSS, we still have approximately $6 million left in rental assistance available, but that's only through September. So as many as apply, we will help out as many as we can with up to 9 months of assistance. But once that closes, it's not likely we'll have another round, but we'll see.
Thanks so much. The next question we have here is, have security deposit laws changed? I believe let me not speculate. Bob, maybe are you able to speak to that?
To my knowledge, they have not changed, but I welcome clarification from anybody else, but I don't believe they have.
Okay, that was going to be my answer as well. I'm not aware of anything. If there's any sort of specific concerns you have or things that you've heard have changed, please feel free to share that in the chat. We can address that more specifically. Next question is definitely one we've heard a lot. How long does an eviction take? What does that process look like? And for that, Bob, do you mind if I throw it back to you?
Yeah, it's taking longer right now, but like the standard process right now is it's supposed to be, if you file for an eviction, it takes 30 days to get into court. And then there's going to be a period of roughly about a month to try to see if the parties are able to, with the help of the early resolution program and the connection to the legal help resources and mediation and potentially rental assistance if it's appropriate, be able to resolve the case. And a lot of them are getting worked out there. And again, I think it's important to stress what Elliot mentioned, that these agreements, ideally, for everybody's sake, if you can work it out where the tenant's going to stay there and pay you and everybody's just moves forward, that's great. And that is often very possible to do that, but it isn't. Sometimes it is other types of agreements, like the tenant will agree to move out in a date certain and leave the premises in good shape, a move out agreement like that, and maybe even a payment plan for back rent. So those types of agreements are being reached too. But if you can't reach an agreement after those, that 30-day span to get into court, and then the month or so the early resolution's in effect, it will get set for a trial call in the court, and it can take another month or two over there. Now, the qualification I need to give you right now is, it's not taking 30 days to get that first date in court. It's taking closer to 90, and we're bringing that number back down, but it's going to take a little bit to get rid of that backlog. So the process is taking a little longer now than it's intended to. The way I described it is the way the process is supposed to work. But it's not quick, no matter how you slice it, because even once you get the eviction judgment, it takes longer for the sheriff to do it. And So looking at these other alternatives and other options for agreements, can't recommend it enough to try to do that whenever you can.
Thanks. And I do see in the chat here, somebody clarified. So security deposit rules in suburban Cook County, they say changed in June of last year. So I know that there was a change that was passed in the last year or so to some landlord tenant rules in suburban Cook County. I don't know the details about that, but I think in the city, there have not been any changes. Okay, next question. If a tenant moves out and there is no way to contact that tenant for them to provide additional information for emergency rental assistance, what can the landlord do to obtain past due rent if the landlord has provided all required documentation? Another really good question. Again, I'll speak to the city's process, emergency rental assistance process, and then if there's other thoughts from other panelists, please jump in. So with the emergency rental assistance program, this federal program that both DOH as well as the state have been administering, the federal rules say that we cannot provide a grant to an application that does not have a tenant participating. So you know, even where there's need, unfortunately, that's not something that we're allowed to support. That said, let me turn it over to anybody else on the panel to talk about what other options might be available beyond emergency rental assistance. Cornelius, I see you.
Yes, I always have to jump in on this one. It definitely goes back to, and I say this just because I'm counseling and I'm talking to both landlords and tenants. Due to the pandemic, we are seeing that, for example, counseled a client that they didn't, or a tenant that didn't just lose their job. The whole company went under. So it's a more complex situation than then we're basically saying on this webinar. But one thing I would stress is in regards just to the importance of the foundational importance of housing counseling, even with the tenants, because one thing that we do with the tenants, of course, we go through the rental resources, but we look at their financials, their credit. But most importantly, one thing that we are passionate about is, like I said, if they are unemployed, we help them find employment services, find financial resources to get them back on it. Because if the tenant is not able to get back on their feet, they're going to always be in a situation where they're going to need the financial rental assistance. So not only are we trying to help both, and we're trying to help for them getting the financial rental assistance, but also trying to help get employment services, trying to get them financially stable. So not only can they find employment so that they can pay for their common needs of food, gas, etc., but to start being able to be self-sufficient, to start repaying the landlord even after the rental assistance has been depleted.
Great. Next question. If a tenant applied for both rental assistance programs, or even let's say more than one, because there's more than two, can they get both? And the answer is no. So a tenant can apply, or a landlord for that matter, can apply for any rental assistance program that they qualify for. But we do have, between the city and the state, we do have a system and to deduplicate, or just make sure that we're not sending multiple checks to the same, for the same application, the same address. So you can apply for both, there's nothing wrong with that. But we do have safeguards on the back end to prevent someone from receiving both both awards from multiple programs. And then the next question is support services specifically for the undocumented community. That's another really great question. So I will start just with a note about our rental assistance program at DOH, and then pass it again to anybody on the panel who wants to add some more information about services they may offer or want to share about. So for the City of Chicago Emergency Rental Assistance Program, we will not ask, our application does not ask about immigration status or for social security number for tenants at any point in the process. We are required by federal guidelines to ask for a tax ID number for property owners. So that will be in there, but we do not ask that for tenants. And so there should not be a block there that prevents people from accessing emergency rental assistance. Are there any other panelists who'd like to jump in?
I just wanted to plug for mediation. Yep. We don't ask any of those types of questions. The only information that we need to really open up a mediation case is your name, phone, and email, and then the other party's name, phone, and email. Or if you don't have the tenant's email, we can try to send them a letter. But we do require 2 forms of communication. That's really all we need to open up a mediation case.
As for Illinois Housing Development Authority, just like the city's program, our rental assistance is available to anybody living in Illinois, regardless of documentation status. I do know that if you visit IllinoisRentalAssistance.org, you can go to one of the state's welcoming centers where they may have additional resources that address undocumented populations or immigrant populations.
Yeah, and I would just add that all the Cook County Legal Aid for Housing and Debt resources, so your free legal, Elliot mentioned mediation, but the free legal help and access to the rental assistance programs you just heard are all open to all people of all incomes, all backgrounds, including undocumented folks. So.
Same for the Department of Family and Support Services. Anyone is welcome to apply.
Great. The next question is probably for Elliot. I have a tenant who stopped paying rent and hasn't made any effort to pay. How could mediation help in a case like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you were able to, if the tenant was willing to participate in the mediation, you could have a conversation about why the tenant has stopped paying and why the tenant has made no efforts, and maybe understand a little bit more about what's going on and formulate a plan together for how to get back on track. So that is an instance where you would require like the tenant to actively participate in that mediation. But there's, I think that there's a whole host of reasons. One of the things we've been hearing is there's a whole host of reasons why people, have been able or not been able to pay rent. Some of them, seem more legitimate than others, right? But like there are a whole host of reasons. And if you're able to have that conversation and understanding, then that might be a path towards coming up with a mutually agreed upon way forward. Maybe not. And just again, to highlight here too, mediation is something that it's a parallel process to the your legal case. So like you trying to ask for mediation does not impinge upon or does not affect your ability to file a case or for your case to be heard in a normal manner. So I think you should think about it as an additional type of resource. So if it may work, it may pan out, it may not, but it does not impact your legal rights and your legal options in any event. It's just an additional resource to try to see if you can resolve that ahead of time.
Great, thank you. The next question I will throw to Rodrigo. Where can I go for questions about the status of my tenant's ILRPP application?
Yeah, so you can log into your portal and to the portal that you submitted your documentation as a landlord. you have the applicant ID, and it will take you to a dashboard that will give you the status in real time. And that is ilrpp2.ida.org.
Thanks. What if the tenant applies for assistance at the same address the landlord applied for mortgage assistance? What happens then? That is a good question. Rodrigo, do you know the answer to that?
I do, actually, we just talked about this. So you must declare the assistance as income in order for you to qualify for the Illinois Homeowners Assistance Fund. If it is not classified as income, then the file will be denied.
Great. So it sounds like if they still qualify based on counting that as their income, then they would still qualify for the mortgage assistance.
That is correct.
Great. Okay. Can we, I assume meaning the housing provider or the property owner, can we deny a tenant from applying for rental assistance? So again, I'll speak for DOH to start, but you know, the basic answer is no. We do have the ability and do where the landlord is not willing to participate or complete an application, we do have the ability to provide funds directly to an eligible qualifying tenant who applies for emergency rental assistance. That said, obviously, if you know that your tenant is applying and you are concerned that you know, there is fraud involved, or there are, you know, other circumstances that mean that they don't qualify or shouldn't qualify, you know, please do reach out to our case managers about that. Please do respond to any outreach. You know, we take all of those issues extremely seriously, and so very much encourage you, if you are concerned that you have a tenant or anybody that you know who is submitting fraudulent applications, please do let us know.
For IDA, you can also submit any concerns for fraudulent applications. You can go to our website at illinoishousinghelp.org, and we give you the instructions on what to do there. Funny enough, we do get this question quite a bit in our call center, and it's with landlords saying, I want to withdraw my application, I'm going to evict them. You can withdraw your application, but just know that the tenant will be continued to be reviewed for eligibility and can have that payment directly paid to the tenant.
For DFSS, we cannot fund an application without the landlord's participation.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so that's a really important distinction. So DOH and the state programs can move forward with a tenant-only application, but the DFSS program run by the city does have to have a landlord component. So if the landlord doesn't participate, that application can't move forward. Okay, looking for next question. So I see one that says, why when there are both a tenant and landlord application in the application portal for emergency rental assistance, are tenants getting the payment? So that should not be happening in the city's program, and I believe this is also the case with the state. Anytime there is a matched application with both a tenant and a landlord application that's been completed and approved, the funds will go directly to the landlord. Any utility assistance always goes directly to the utility company. Anything. So if there is a situation where you believe that a mistake has been made, it should never happen. But if you do believe that there's a situation, I would ask to get in touch with the call center right away to let them know about that.
Daniel, I just want to add that there was a question regarding why do we pay the tenant and not the landlord, right? Those are Treasury guidelines. Unfortunately, there's instructions within those guidelines that tenants are eligible to receive payment even if the landlord is unresponsive or uncooperative, but it does not have any sort of direction for landlords, unfortunately.
Thanks. I have a question to just clarify again what I just said. So I'm going to say this and then I'm going to I'll put it in the chat, and I believe everybody will be able to see this. The question is, can you please write down the 3 programs for rental assistance again and clarify which 2 can proceed with the landlord's participation and which one cannot. So again, I'm going to say this and then I'll put it again in the chat so people can read it. I know I'm a visual learner with this sort of thing. So there's the Department of Housing Emergency Rental Assistance Program and the state ILRPP, the Illinois Rental Payment Program. Both of those can go ahead and approve, and in fact have to, under Treasury guidelines, have to approve eligible tenant-only applications. Then there's the DFSS Rental Assistance Program that Mark Sanders spoke about, and that program cannot move ahead without the landlord's participation. So the DFSS program that Mark spoke about, run by the city, does require landlord participation in order to move forward and be approved. Okay, and we're going to move on to the last question. Again, we're going to post this a recording of this and slides on our website. But the last question for today, by the time landlords and tenants get to mediation or the early resolution program in the court system, tenants may owe a very large amount of back due rent. Landlords worry that they will be forced to forego collecting any of that in exchange for letting the tenants move out. What is your experience with this type of situation? Really good question. Definitely have heard of people in that situation. Bob, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, you can't be forced to do anything. So, but realistically, I think if you're the landlord, and this is where I think taking advantage of the free legal help or talking to a lawyer if you already have one, just strategically about your situation is, what are the chances you're going to collect it? Because you can get a judgment against the tenant. That's not going to be a problem in the court process. It may take a little time, but you can get your full amount of rent in a judgment, but then you have to try to collect it. And so I think it's just really trying to figure out, like, what's, practically speaking, what's going to work here. So I think Elliot mentioned payment plans are part of the mediations a lot of times, and spreading out a payment, but like realistically looking at it just from a pure self-interest standpoint, what can get you back to a position where you're getting paid to rent your place again is, the first thing you want to try to do, and then think realistically, what's the chances you're going to be able to collect that money? And it's tough, when people haven't been paying for a long time. We all recognize that, and it is tough, and the rental assistance, as good as it's been and as helpful it's been, can't cover everything. So, it's just one of those things. I think, Elliot, do you want to talk a little bit about how you handle that in mediation?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that in mediation, maybe unlike a judge's judgment, there's a whole variety of possible sort of ways forward. So, I mean, just even from my own experience mediating, I've had a tenant who had already moved out but still owed the landlord money, but the tenant recognized that he owed him money for damages and agreed to a payment plan. I've had a tenant who agreed to move out and had a move out date in another month, but also agreed to actively participate in the rental assistance program for back rent and for that month that they were going to stay there. So there's a whole variety of different options there. I don't want you to think that it's mutually exclusive, that you mediate and you don't get money, or the tenant moves out and you don't get money. Because also one of the things that's great about mediation is, the potential to reestablish maybe goodwill that's there, or recognize where a tenant may recognize that they do in fact owe money and want to figure out ways to pay back, maybe some, maybe not all. But those are things that are possible in a way that may not be possible by a judge's order or other things that are there. As Bob mentioned, there's a whole other set of steps that are involved with trying to actually collect money outside, and mediation may be a way around that, or a more direct way to just between the landlord and the tenant to try and resolve those issues directly.
Great, thank you, Elliot and Bob. Okay, so that is the last question we're able to take today. If we can go on to the next slide, just again, the two sort of, one more, there we go, one more. The two highest level takeaways that we really want to get across today. Number one is that financial and legal help is still available for both tenants and housing providers in the city of Chicago and Cook County. And that number two, you can access mediation services at any time, whether you haven't yet filed an eviction, whether you've filed but haven't made it to court yet, or whether you've already been in court. Mediation is something that can help you resolve the situation with your tenant. With that, on the next slide, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. We want to, as the city and all of our partners here, and a thank you to all the partners who are here, want to be here to support and provide as many resources and support as we can to all of you to help support the city's housing, rental housing ecosystem. Again, I'll just say the slides, including translated slides, will be posted at Chicago.gov/eviction. And you can email Crystal Godina at cityofchicago.org or DOH@cityofchicago.org with additional questions, and we will try to get back to you promptly. Thank you so much and have a good night.